Hello, and you're very welcome to another edition of the JMAC podcast. I'm John McMahon. Of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website for all your retro gear needs and wants. And today, I'm joined by Kevin McGourty, former Antrim footballer, to talk about the Ulster Championship draw last night and any of the current GAA news. I know there's not a lot, but I've dug some out, and we're going to dig into it tonight. So, Kevin, how are you?
I'm great, John. Great to be on. Great to be talking about what is about to come about. The draws are made and we're finally going to see some action. So, yeah, looking forward to the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure we're going to be in for another interesting season.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. And how's life? How are you keeping since we were last chatting?
Playing a lot of golf, John, very poorly. So just off the golf course literally 20 minutes ago. So still hooking the ball, still getting out, still, just with the lockdown still coming to an end now, at the minute it's just important to get out of the house and get a bit of structure, get a bit of fitness in. So hopefully all this madness is going to come to an end soon. It's great to see a lot of the stuff up online of kids out back playing football, back out on the pitches, coaches getting out, especially in the north. And hopefully that'll be the sign of our summer. So hopefully we'll over the next couple of months the GA will really give us something to look forward to, and let's put the past behind us and move on positively.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And have you been called back into the Antrim panel in recent weeks?
Oh, geez, I haven't had any word. I got a text message from Sean Kelly maybe 2 or 3 months ago about something, but that's only, it was only about a personal issue. So them guys there, hopefully Sean and Enda and Stephen and the guys that they've got in with him moving forward, fresh start for them. So, wishing them all the best, and they'll have their work cut out. Let's just say that.
Absolutely. So we'll touch on to the business end of things. The Ulster Championship draw was made last night, of course, and sure, I'll name out the teams. And so in the preliminary round, it was down against Donegal. The quarter-final is going to be Armagh v Antrim, Monaghan v Fermanagh, Tyrone v Cavan, and Derry v Down, and they play Donegal if they get over the line. So, Kevin, what did you make of it all? We'll start off down in Donegal.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come back to down Donegal a second. Overall, it's a really good draw. Mouth-watering from maybe 5 or 6 different points of view, John. I mean, from your own county's perspective, Cavan are coming in. Mickey Graham, great first year in terms of championship, winning the Ulster Championship. Everybody was so happy to see it. But now, can they build upon that? Big question mark there. Donegal really, they got kicked between the legs last year, let's be honest. Nobody's seen that coming. They were in the top 3 or 4. Really, again, we're going to see how they react in a different way than maybe we're expecting Cavan to react. Obviously, the big question mark is, how is the non-Mickey Hart factor now in Tyrone going to affect Tyrone? What are they going to bring to the table? What's new? And then, I suppose, from another point of view, especially from what I've been thinking over the last couple of days, it's really put up or shut up time for McGuinness and Armagh. He's been about there 4 or 5 years. He's a great competitor. He's got them real fit. They're up into Division 1. Donaghy's involved now. They've had a lovely wee draw here. They really must be thinking in his own mind. He gets these guys going, gets a win or 2 under his belt, and he can make an Ulster final. So there's sort of 5 or 6 different bits of narrative coming into the championship, different perspectives that people will be looking at, and that's what makes it mouth-watering. And I suppose the thing about the Ulster Championship, if I go back to your question, anything can happen in any given day. We've seen that with Cavan and Donegal obviously last year. Donegal, sort of, if we go back to the early 2000s, they were, before McGuinness came in, they were really the team that, a bit like the French rugby team, they could play New Zealand one day and win, and the next day go out against Fiji and lose. That was Donegal back then. They didn't really like going out of Ballybofey. They didn't like going to other grounds. Down have a real championship pedigree. Going into Newry, first game out, the good thing for Down is that they've got 2 or 3 or 4 really good league games going to be under their belt by that time. They're going to be playing good teams. I think they've got Mayo first up. That's going to be a real good test for them. It's going to give them a real good ground and get into the championship. So, look, anybody that's playing down in the championship and underestimates them going in at Newry is going to be up against it. So, it's going to be a good start. And I am expecting a reaction from Donegal this year. So disappointed in them last year, the way it ended up. I really thought that, I still do think that they're in the top 4 teams in the country. And it's up for them now to go and prove that. And the likes of Stephen Rochford coming in, obviously it's the second year in there now, but, him and Declan Boyd, they've really got to prove their worth, really under pressure to provide. And for them to get back to where they want to be as Ulster champions, it's going to be a very, very difficult task, going away to Down. If they do get over the line there, they have to go away to Derry. Never an easy place to go to. If they do get over the line there, then it's up against Tyrone. And then after 3 hard slogs, if they are lucky in all them 3 games, then you're going to be up in an Ulster final, probably against Monaghan or Armagh, who are 2 teams in Division 1 as well. So, it's going to be really difficult for Donegal to win it this year. Really, really difficult. If they do, they'll have earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel there's kind of more pressure on Declan Bonner this year? Because I think a lot of people are nearly calling for his head after the Ulster final. So do you feel there's that bit of added pressure on Declan, Kevin?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, Donegal have played themselves into a position now where there's a lot of expectation in the county. McGuinness, post-McGuinness, the expectation levels have risen. There's a great sort of golden generation of players there. They've won maybe 4 of the last 6 Ulster Championships. Competing really well at minors and 21s. There's a real expectation there. There's real pressure levels. Really underachieved last year. And Declan will know that himself. I've met him once or twice. He's a lovely, lovely fella. But he's got to be ruthless this year. I would say nothing better than a semi-final will do for the people in Donegal. That's where they see themselves, top 4. Most pundits see them top 4. And, on the back of last year, they're coming into the championship under real pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, with Down obviously getting beat by us in that semi-final, and had cruise control in the first half, and we came back and bet them. So what's the crack with Down, do you feel, this year, Kev? And big point to prove as well.
It's really hard to talk about Down. I've always been a fan of Down football, but, at the minute, they're a real puzzle to work out right across the board. I know James McCartan and Dan McCartan are in doing a lot of work with the minors. Didn't really work out over the last couple of years. They've got more than any other county in Ulster, I would argue, they've got a great school basis. They've 2, 3, 4, yes, okay, they lose a couple of guys to Armagh and the Newry schools, but they've got 2, 3, 4 good schools there. Breda and Carryduff really coming good in terms of the club. So there's a lot of that Belfast element that wasn't there traditionally in Down, now coming strong for them. But they always will have naturally gifted footballers, and they always will, because of their tradition, put up a fight. But they're a real puzzle to work out. I always think that Down going forward are an excellent team. The problem is at the back. Maybe Paddy's a wee bit too defensive for them, in my opinion. Down teams that express themselves, as we've seen in 2010, for example, under James against Kerry. Kerry went in that day in the quarterfinal really expecting to win that game. Down had real expressive players. James gave them a license to do what they did, and that's when they're most dangerous. I just feel there's too tight of a rein on them at the minute. And they're going through a transition period again. Down to the sort of county, a bit like Cavan a couple of years ago. They need to go back to minor. They need to build a bit. They haven't had an awful lot of success at minor and under 21 over the last 10 years, for example. Whereas the likes of Cavan have, Tyrone have, Donegal have, and to a lesser extent Derry have. So it's going to be a few years yet. They might have the odd upset because they do have the players, but I think the good thing for them is that they're in Division 2. They're going to get quality games. And if they can stay in that division post-COVID next year, that could be a real boost for them. But the main aim for them would really be going back down to base, looking at minors, looking at 21s, and building from there.
Yeah, and can you see an upset in Down and Donegal in the preliminary round? Can you see any upset there at all? Like, can you see Down asking Declan Bonner's team any questions, Kevin?
I see them asking questions, but I don't know if they've the personnel or the system at the minute to really trouble them on it. Of course, Donegal can have an off day. All the breaks could go right for Down. It is the Ulster Championship after all. It is in Down's back garden, which is, they're hard to beat in there. They're a proud county, lots of proud people down there. Down will always have a chance no matter who they play in the Ulster Championship. I just think that at the minute, Donegal have too many aces in their pack, and I think that Declan Bonner will know that he's under real pressure and will have these guys fine-tuned for getting into that first game.
Yeah, and if you were to make a call, who would you be thinking?
I'll be taking Donegal.
Donegal, super. Move on to the quarter-final ends of things as well. So Armagh against Antrim. What's the verdict on that, and where's Antrim football at the minute, really, Kevin? Like, I know we touched on it a couple of weeks ago, but what's the latest on the whole thing?
Well, I think there was a sigh of relief right across Antrim homes when we got Armagh, for the fact of the matter was that Armagh were pulled out of the hat first. So the embarrassment of not even having a home encasement wasn't even a question, so imagine if Antrim had to come out of the hat first and there was 5,000 people, all ticket match encasement. That would have been a real embarrassment for us. But no, I think obviously we're down in Division 4. We have new management coming in. Unfortunately, our better players, Mick McCann, Tomas McCann, Paddy Cunningham, if he does come back this year, Kevin Niblock. I know that Kevin O'Boyle's retired. Them sort of guys are the wrong age of 30. They're the better players. Matthew Fitzpatrick isn't playing at the minute because he's involved in semi-professional soccer. So, it's not great. Enda's coming in at a very it's at a poor base level. And that's really, again, going back to Down, what I said about them. Our school system isn't working. Our underage system isn't working. Minors 21s, I think you can count on the one, probably on 3 fingers, the amount of wins we've had in a minor or under 21 championship match since 2010. It's that bad. So, he's going to get his eyes opened, Enda. Stephen, the two of them they're really going to get their eyes open. It's going to be a baptism of fire in management, in terms of inter-county management for the two of them. And, if they can do anything with the team, it'll be a great credit to them, because they just don't have the players at the minute. The generation that's coming through have sort of been neglected underage. And I fear for them getting against Armagh, if I'm honest with you. Lenny had a tactic last year against Cavan, down in Cavan. It was quite a negative game plan, but it worked for a long time. But again, as I say to you, the better players were all sort of over the age of 33, 34, the mix, the Paddy Cunninghams of this world. So it's not looking good for the future. You add into that Division 4 is going to be very competitive for them this year, given that Mickey Hart's at Louth, McEntee's over at Sligo. So that's sort of going to be their main aim, is if they can do anything in Division 4. That's where they want to try and get out of that, maybe get up a league. We've been saying that for 3, 4, 5 years now about Antrim. It's about getting out of Division 4. That is the sole focus, I think, to be honest with you. So getting them competitive games, building up 2 or 3 wins, heading into the Armagh match would be what maybe End is aiming for. But as I say again, I think he's in for a rude awakening. This isn't exactly, Tyrone under Mickey Hart that these two guys would have played on, and Antrim, what they're going to manage in terms of everything around the camp and facilities and players and whatever else. It's like 2 different galaxies. So they're really going to have to be pragmatic in the way that they address things and go about things. So good luck to them. Fair play to them, and you can only wish them the best. In terms of Armagh, this for me is the big unknown in the Ulster Championship. Kieran is a very proud fella, came through Queen's, a bit like myself. I've chatted to him 2 or 3 times. You can tell that he's a serious operator. Done very well down in Kildare, brings a professional setup. He's obviously come up the Armagh. Heart's there. His heart's in it. He started to put in great structures in terms of the Armagh Academy. he's had Paul McGrain in working in there, though Aidan O'Rourke's probably been doing a bit in there as well. So, they've got some of the boys from the past who are coming in. They're trying to build something there. Fair play to them. They've got up a league. They're now in the Division 1 where they want to be. I'd say that they're going to get 3 really, really good games in the league, and that's going to be key to them. They've got Tyrone, they've got Monaghan, they've got Donegal. If they can get a win or 2 out of that, it'd give them a real boost. They're probably licking the lips at the draw, Antrim at home, then the winners of Fermanagh and Monaghan. So it's a big season for Armagh. It's a big season for Armagh supporters. They're a very demanding people. They're a well-supported county. And I'm going to be really interested to see where they can go. They've been to the quarterfinals under McGeady before. And I think it's about time then that he looks at maybe the next step beyond that. For me, a good season for him would be maybe a win or 2 wins in Division 1 and an Ulster final. And anything after that would be a bonus. But yeah, it's time really for them 3, 4, 5 seasons into this project to really deliver.
Yeah, and kind of touching on Antrim there, Kevin, like you were alluding to the game against Cavan. Like, is there any kind of solace or is there any kind of encouragement they can use from that game against us? Maybe because against Armagh, like they could maybe use similar tactics. They could maybe park the bus. Like they nearly had us bet, and we were Ulster Championship champions, Kevin. So surely they can use a bit of inspiration from that game.
Well, no, I mean, again, Lenny's a relation of mine, but I was glad they were beat because that tactic is not working in the game. Class will always shine through. And I think the last time I was on with you with CJ, we were talking about why Dublin will always win because they have the classiest players and they have a system where they want to attack you. There's too many teams going back, and I'll touch on it in a minute with Tyrone and this year for them. There's too many teams going back to the Tyrone Armaghs of 02-03, men behind the ball. Spillane called it puke football. This game is about scoring. It's about putting your opponent under pressure. It's about attacking them. It's not about sitting back and defending. And Antrim did that, and Cavan, I think that day, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Cavan had 10, 12 wides.
Yeah.
Antrim didn't have that, It was just poor shooting by Cavan, really, that put themselves under pressure. They had control of the game, Cavan. They always looked as if they had an extra gear in them. So, I wouldn't take too much away from that game from an Antrim perspective. I always favour the team with an open, expansive game. I always favour cornerbacks, wing-backs getting forward and scoring. And I think that any manager, whether it be a club junior manager or a senior inter-county manager, that wants to play that sort of, for want of a better word, the Jose Mourinho defensive game. We score a point and then it's up to you to come back in and attack us. It's just not going to work anymore. People are too smart for that. And it's a teams with a big, open, expansive game. 6 or 7 different scores. That's the team that's going to win games.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting to hear your perspective on Armagh as well. Probably maybe the sleeping giants in Ulster, Kevin. So really big pressure on them. As you say, big pressure on McGeady to deliver. And it's a must win for them, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the internal workings of Armagh. I know that their supporters, as I said to you before, are very passionate people. I've worked a wee bit at university level with Rory Grugan, for example. Highly talented footballer. I knew from the minute I seen him, like he was sex on legs. You could just tell, the way that he had the ball, the way that he kicked the ball, the flight of the ball. You just knew the kid was so talented. Played against Cross on a number of occasions. You look at, Gareth O'Neill's 2 young fellas there, real good players. So they do have talent coming up. And they do have a high-profile manager. And, Ciarán Donaghy's come in there now. There is a great professionalism about Armagh. It's all right having all of that, John. It's then about delivering on it. So they have talent. They have a great support. They have a great support system in terms of supporting the team through logistics and, a very passionate manager. They have great potential. But it's about delivering upon that. And I don't know how long Ciarán will get, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, whatever else to deliver. But sooner or later, they're going to have to, the glass ceiling's going to have to be broken. and it's not going to be broken against winning against Antrim or Fermanagh or Derry at the minute, or Down, with all due respect to them counties. It's going to be beating a Division 1 team. It's going to be taking a scalp like Galway or a Mayo or a Cork. So that's what they need to be working towards. I think that they're a bit of line. They're on line on that project. You know, they are moving up the league. They are going to get good quality games this year, but I do think that they need a good championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose Kieran Donaghy, I'm intrigued by his role with the Armagh senior footballers as well, Kevin. So what do you feel he'll bring to the deck of cards?
Well, I mean, I think that maybe he's been brought in there in terms of forwards coach. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what his role is, if I'm totally honest with you. But I mean, Donaghy's been around a few corners. He's took a bit of flack himself up and down the country in terms of the media. He shows that he's a mentally strong character. He's come back. So he brings a winning mentality. He brings a guy who's been to the very edge of the sport, you know, who's had to come back from setbacks, whether that be personal setbacks or indeed, you know, losing All Ireland finals. He's been there with criticism. So, you know, guys are going to look up to him coming into the camp. You know, young Armagh footballers are going to respect him. He knows what a professional setup is. I don't think he'll stand for any, you know, second-rate or second-hand stuff. And, you know, he'll have to prove himself to McGeady and to Armagh as well. So, you know, I think coming in there, he'll bring something different to them. Anybody coming from Kerry that's got a couple of All-Ireland medals in his pocket, you want to listen to and you want to learn from. So it'll be an interesting dynamic, you know, Donaghy, McGeady on the line, where they really go this year. So, I mean, as I say, it's the one great unknown for me in the Ulster Championship this year is Armagh, and I really hope they can do something to liven it all up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, lastly on it, obviously, if you were casting on the Armagh and Donegal game last year, and you've seen like a lot of the Armagh boys kind of getting involved in off the ball stuff and kind of taunting Michael Murphy and stuff. So, what's your take on that kind of sledging crack, Kevin? And why did the Armagh lads get up to it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, that's a tactic that maybe Kieran has brought in or somebody else has brought in. Look, again, we have these boys that eat egg and onion sandwiches and slurp tea down in Croke Park. You know, and they talk about, we can't have two captains going up to lift All Irelands. They don't deal with the rules that need to be dealt with, you know, and the rules that need to be dealt with are stuff like that. And again, it's up for a referee. You know, when a boy turns over a ball, what you see now is similar to rugby, somebody getting a pat in the head or leaning over the top of them and, you know, sledging them or whatever else. Referees need to step in at that point, and it should be an automatic black card. Kids watching on, you know, we're talking about promoting our games in the best manner possible. You know, we'll watch hurling, for example. You see 15 warriors in each team going at it. You don't really see that crap in hurling, to be honest with you, at the highest level. So it needs to be eradicated. Maybe a rule from Croke Park, maybe a directive to the referees that it's an automatic black card or it's an automatic sent off for the rest of the game and that somebody can come on to replace you. But no, it's not something that we want to see in the game. Certainly, if you're a player marking somebody of the caliber of Michael Murphy, you go toe-to-toe with him. You know in the week before the game that you want to go toe-to-toe with him. You know, you should be thinking in your own mind that, even though you're probably not, that I'm as good as him, that I want to show it, that this is a big challenge for me, that I want to go toe-to-toe with him. I'm not going to go down to gutter tactics to try and, you know, take away from his performance. I'm going to try and merit my performance by being the best I can be. So, you know, different players, different teams approach it differently, but it's just not for me, no.
Yeah, I'd be off the opinion as well. I really don't like it, and hopefully it doesn't creep into the game this year. And obviously, Armagh, Antrim, who's going to win that one?
Yeah, it has to be Armagh for me. The smart money would tell us Armagh. You know, they're in their back garden, as I say. You know, McGeady will have them up for the game. They'll have good quality games under their belt. You know, up front, they may just have too much for Antrim. So, yeah, I'll give it to Armagh.
Yeah, no brainer, says you. And Monaghan v Fermanagh in the other quarter final as well, Kevin. Probably an intriguing game. I think people should really probably be giving Fermanagh a chance in this. Monaghan were obviously caught training a few weeks ago. We'll touch on to that in a couple of minutes. But what's the opinions and all that, Kevin?
Yeah, it is an intriguing game because obviously it's a local derby, and obviously again in Ulster nothing's a given. The big issue for me going into that game is it's really hard to call which Fermanagh is going to turn up. Over the last couple of years, obviously Fermanagh have maybe had a bit of a downtime league-wise. It hasn't went well for them. Ryan went in last year. It was a hard league campaign for them. So really, what we're looking at is what's their league form going to be like? Are they going to get a win or two in the league? Look, Fermanagh have been, over the last 10, 15 years, Fermanagh have been one of the bright spots in the Ulster Championship. They've reached a couple of finals. They've given us great days out. They've beat big teams when they've been the underdog. They always will give you a go. They have 3, 4, 5 quality players. But in saying that, you're looking at Monaghan. You're looking at the fact that they're still a Division 1 team, that they're getting 3, 4 good games in the league before the start this year. They have in Conor McManus an exceptionally talented player who is surrounded by very hard-working players that maybe don't get the credit that they deserve. So, even though it's a local derby, I think that game's clonus. So, you would be expecting Monaghan to come through that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose in recent weeks we did see that, but is there pressure on Banty to deliver in the Ulster Championship this year as well, Kevin? Because last year, obviously, huge disappointment against us. Big pressure on Banty, and I suppose Conor McManus, as you were saying, is a fantastic player, but I'd be of the opinion McManus is maybe another year or two, and maybe that's it for McManus, I'd imagine.
I don't know about the pressure on Branty. I mean, if you walk by Branty in the street, sometimes it'd be said coming out of him. You think he was on the marijuana or something. He can be laid back at times, Branty. But great personality. Passionate Monaghan man. I'm sure more than anybody, he was hurt by the defeat against Cavan last year, and he'll be trying to come to the table with a new zest this year. So yes. There will be pressure on him to get back up on the horse. Again, I don't want to keep on repeating myself, but the league is going to be vital for Monaghan this year. Good games against good quality teams going into that Fermanagh match. Who knows? To get over the Fermanagh game, semi-final versus Armagh, one-off game. That's really, what the focus should be for Banty is, can we get to a semi-final and then see what happens? The big issue you mentioned there it's a really important issue. And I've mentioned this to a number of people when discussing Donegal over the last few years. There was a real emphasis on Michael Murphy for a long time in Donegal. And, it was sort of, you take Murphy out of the game, you nullify a lot of what Donegal have going forward. They've still great players at the back, McGee, McHugh, these sort of kids. But the same can be said about Monaghan. Easier said than done to mark Conor McManus. He's a wonderful footballer, a great ambassador for Monaghan. But really, what Monaghan now need is 3 or 4 other guys to step up to the plate, to take some more of the pressure off him. As I say, Monaghan maybe don't get the credit that they deserve. They have a lot of hard-working players. They're not overly greatly skillful or score you 6, 7 points. Or they're not going to turn a guy inside out, but they're a bloody hard-working team, and each one of them knows their job. And I suppose under Malachy for 3, 4, 5 years, that was very evident. Conor obviously got a lot of the scores and a lot of the plaudits, but I would suspect Banty will Banty will come back this year. As I say, there'll be a new oomph about them coming into the league, coming into the championship. They'll always be competitive. You'll always have to work bloody hard to beat them. But the major thing for Banty and the management team will be who else is stepping up to the mark to take on some of the scoring duties, to take off some of that pressure from Manzi. So that will be interesting to see. I don't think that you can turn around and say the last point that you made about Conor McManus. I don't think that there's a shelf life from somebody like Conor McManus. I mean, realistically, he is Mickey Linden-esque. Conor can go on for quite a long time. He has that turn of pace. He has a great attitude. He's a winner. He has the natural ability. So it's really Conor's drive that will stop Conor from continuing to play. And I hope that Conor goes on for for 2, 3, 4 more years to come, because, as I say, he's been a real hero for Monaghan football, but also a real good role model for the kids there coming through. And I personally love watching him play.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And of course, guys, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website for all your retro gear needs and wants. And I suppose Ricey McMenamin's Fermanagh, Kevin, obviously pressure on Ricey to perform and deliver like no other manager. But where do you see Fermanagh football at the minute? And what are they going to do this year?
Yeah, it's, I'd say Ricey loves the pressure. Don't worry about that. If there's a dog in a fight, you'd probably want Ricey in that for you, because there's not going to be too many that beat him. So, from him, look, he's got a winning mentality. He's trying to bring that forward with these guys. Fermanagh's problem is they haven't got a great pool of players, and a bit like Down at the minute, and certainly like Antrim, underage level hasn't been great for them, to say the least. So realistically, it's about making the most of what you have. Again, going back to the tactics maybe that Antrim employed, getting men behind the ball. They do have, again, a bit like Rory Gogan. He was on the same team that I coached at Queen's with Ryan Jones. Wonderfully talented footballer. James McMahon playing centre half back, accent reader of the game. Corrigan's up front, very, very good footballers. Always get you a score. So these guys, Shea Cullen there as well, these guys there is talent in Fermanagh. It's very thin, so it's about getting the most out of them. And I think when Malachy was over Fermanagh, that was a great thing about them. Same with Monaghan. He got the most out of the players that were available to them. They bought into him. They played for that system. And when you get a team doing that, it's very, very hard to break their spirit. And I think that's the one thing Ricey maybe will look at doing coming into the league, building up a good spirit, building up a team bond, building up a fact where everybody knows what the role is within that team going forward. Maybe getting a win or two under the belt, coming in under the radar against the Monaghan team in Division 1, and hoping to spring a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose if you were to call this Monaghan Fermanagh, any upsets there?
Well, I think 90% of people would say Monaghan at the minute, and I wouldn't disagree with them. I think that they just home advantage, good quality games under their belt, and I think they're just a wee bit further on down the line as a team than maybe Fermanagh are at the minute. Yeah,
so we'll go with Monaghan for that one. I suppose, obviously ourselves, we got Tyrone. It's going to be up in Tyrone's Healy Park, and obviously it'll be a massive day, and I really hope the Cavanagh's going to give it a good bash. And what are the thoughts on that one, Kevin?
Well, I suppose I'm intrigued, absolutely intrigued by this. There's so many stories coming out before this match that it's, when the draw first came out, people in Monaghan probably took a big intake of breath and went, it's Tyrone. The sort of, over the last decade, 2 decades, probably the most consistent team in Ulster football, great underage setup, always going to be strong, always going to be difficult to beat. This was the hardest draw probably that Cavan could have got, barred maybe arguably going to Ballybuffet. So, how do you look at it from Mickey Graham's point of view? Well, you sit back, you take a big intake of breath, and you go, wow, negativity starts to flow. They're so good. They're good in their back garden. Look at the players they have. They've maybe underachieved. Or do you then swap it round and you go on the front foot and you absolutely lick your lips and say, this is what we needed. This is where we want to be. Cavan last year overachieved. They've now put themselves in an excellent position in terms of Ulster champions. Yes, they're there to be knocked down. But listen, you go in there with the broad shoulders, you go through the gates at Healy Park, and you say, it's up to you, Tyrone, to come at us, because we've done it last year. So the Cavan players, the Cavan management, Cavan supporters, there should be a bit of bullishness about them. There should be a bit of pride, a bit of, in a small way, a bit of arrogance going in there. A bit of confidence. A lot of these guys, I think I said this the last time I was on with you, a lot of these Cavan lads have won minors and 21s. In many of them games that beat Tyrone, they've been there. So there has been a sort of a pattern up here. Tyrone aren't these sort of phantom characters from the movies. They're not exactly Captain America that's always going to, come out on top or always going to shine through. They are beatable. That's been seen over the past couple of seasons. The other narrative is that Tyrone are in a very vulnerable position right now, in my opinion. Fergal Logan's got the job. Fergal Logan, again, a guy I know through my time at Queen's, absolute gentleman. Been around a few corners. But there's big pressure on him. So the post-Hart era is going to start. It's going to be starting against he's going to get 3 very good games in the league. But the most interesting narrative about Tyrone is this. There's 2. The first one is, are they going to play the same way as Hart had played this last couple of years? Negative. First issue is about defence. Basically tactics that, whether Tyrone supporters like it or not, didn't work. Didn't work in the last 5 years. Called out, showed up, whatever else you want to put it that way. Is Fergal Logan and Brander going to stick with that? My opinion would be they'd be absolutely crazy to do that. The shift in players that have gone now from Hart's time, the likes of Sean Kavanagh, Colin Kavanagh, Cal McCrowan, people like that have now left. The good thing about Fergal and Brander is that they know these guys. They had them in under 21, maybe semi-final or final. They had them at that age group. They know most of the kids at that age who are going to be up or about or knocking on the door of the Tyrone panel. But the second big issue with Tyrone is Tyrone are sort of Kerry in 1976-77. They're looking for a bomber listing type player. They're looking for that one game changer who's going to make them that different than they are right now. We know that they have a very strong squad. We know that the likes of Petey Hart and Matty Donnelly, Frank Burns, guys like that could make most teams in the country. Porrick Hampshire. Good players, good strong players. The problem for Tyrone is they just haven't got the right fit. They really struggled under Mickey Hart the last 4 or 5 years to get the right fit. Who was their best starting 15? Who was going to play in that vital role in the middle of the park? Who was going to win their own ball up front in the full forward line? I know that they put Matty at wing forward. I know they had him in a full forward. They tried Petey up there. They tried Richie Donnelly, I think, in full forward in a couple of games. Brian Kennedy was fired in there last year. Big Kennedy, big lump of a lad. They threw him in there to try and get the best out of him. So, Fergal's going to have to look at what his team selection is. And I've said this time and time again to Tyrone supporters that have asked me. They have too many similarities, and this is where Fergal's going to really earn his coin. McCalliskey, excellent footballer. McCurry, excellent footballer. O'Neill from Oma, excellent footballer. Mark Bradley, excellent footballer, right? All lovely, lovely players in their own right, but they're far too similar of a player to play on the same team at the same time. So, Fergal's got to say, who is my best 2? In fact, who is my best 3 and who am I cutting from the squad? He's got to be ruthless. Now, yes, you go on form. Last year, the year before, McCurry was on real form. All of a sudden, he was dropped out of nowhere. Couldn't understand it. He was playing on form. So you pick him. The other year, Ronan O'Neill was coming on. He was scoring every time he came on, but he couldn't get a start in the team. Mark Bradley played in the All-Ireland final. He gave Keane O'Sullivan a run around for 20 minutes the other year. So who does he go with? If they're not playing up to scratch, get ruthless. Either they're off the team or off the panel. But you cannot have too many players that are too similar playing in the forward line. And as I said to you the last time I spoke to you, when you go back to that great Tyrone team in the early 2000s, when you name them 6 forwards, in all 3 of their All-Ireland winning teams, whether it be Gerard Cavan coming in or out, whether it be Enda McGinley and that 6 forwards, you'd Dure, you'd McGuigan, you'd O'Neill, you'd Mulligan, you'd Canavan. They all offered you something completely and utterly different. McGuigan was the little genius, the little puppet master with the feet. He brought everybody else into it. Canavan was just everything. He could win his own ball, he could turn a man, he never failed to turn up, he was just a genius. Then you had Dure, who was the great workhorse. Then you'd Stephen O'Neill, who at any minute could work back and forth, but he'd take a man on. He could score a goal from 50 yards if he wanted because he was just that talented. And then you'd Mulligan, who, you know, for all his critics, he had another pure genius. So they all brought something different to that Tyrone forward line. They were all different types of players. You know, Colin McCullough then came in, who's a quite similar player to maybe McCurry, a natural finisher. But at the minute, they've too many similar players up front, and they haven't got it right. And for years, Hart was always building his team upon defence, and he was 100% right. Fair play to him. You know, he got us All-Irelands, but they haven't sorted out the forward line. And that's where their big issue lies, is up front. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how Fergal attacks this. He'll also have his own ideas about bringing new players into the panel. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Paul Donaghy from Dungannon. A lot of talk about Mark McKerney, who played in the 21s from Dungannon. So who's the new guys going to come in? Who's Fergal not going to fancy out of the old guys? You know, and first year is always an experimental year, you know, for teams. I don't think Tyrone, I can't see Tyrone making the top 4 this year, if I'm honest with you. I can't see them being an All-Ireland semi-finalist.
And like, do you feel all the pressure is on Tyrone? Like, do you feel the Cavan lads should go in with a mindset, whereas all the pressure's on them? It's a great draw, and you know, Cavan are far better off, as you were saying, getting the likes of Tyrone rather than Antrim, Fermanagh, or even Derry, in all due respect, because we are pitting ourselves against apparently one of the best teams in Ulster.
Well, let's do a straw poll as we sit here tonight on a Wednesday evening in the midst of April. If you done a straw poll of people in Ballyjames tonight, more than half of them would say Tyrone's going to win this game. You know, there's no expectation. And when there's no expectation on a team, and they've got talent, and they've got a plan, and they've got drive, you know, and they've got people like Dermot McCabe and Mickey Graham behind them who are proud men, that's a dangerous team. So Cavan travelling up there will in themselves have their own confidence. And it's the outside world that will maybe doubt them. But when somebody doubts you in anything in life, that's when the true man comes out, or the true team comes out. That's when you throw down the shackles and you get on with it then. And this is a great, you know, Cavan couldn't ask for a better draw, in my opinion. And if this Cavan team wants to progress, you know, last year's either going to be a flash in the pan for them, or it's going to be the foundation of a Cavan that's going to be really competitive in Ulster over the next 3, 4, 5 years, as they were 7 or 8 years ago at under 21. You know, so it's a big test for them. There's no doubts about it, but it's a big opportunity too for them.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I can't wait for it personally. I think it's great, and a lot of people are probably doubting us and saying Tyrone will get over the line, but I really do feel Cavan should give it a good stab. And would you be off the opinion, really, that Fergal Logan, Brian Dewar, all these forwards coming in, all the pressure really is on Tyrone, Kevin?
Yeah, I've no doubt. Look, not wanting to be Paddy O'Shea with Kerry people here and the famous quote that he came out, but Tyrone people are desperately demanding human beings, you know, when it comes to Gaelic football. You know, it's beautiful to see how passionate they are about the game, but sometimes that passion can overflow, and they think they can win every year and all the time. That's just not the way it goes. And Fergal knows himself the pressure that's on him, and Brian knows, and I'm sure the players there, the Matty Donnellys and the Petey Harts of this world, they know that all too well. So, you know, Tyrone, no matter who they're getting in against, whether it be even Donegal, they'll be under terrible pressure to win. And the pressure will then build again for them if they do get over Cavan to beat Donegal. And, you know, Tyrone people are arrogant in a way that even if they met Dublin this year in an All-Ireland semi-final, which I don't think they will, there'd still be pressure on to win that game, despite what Dublin's done. So, you know, there'll always be pressure in Tyrone. There'll always be passion. Fergal, Bran, as I say, the senior players know about it. It's how they tackle it. It's how they channel it. That will be interesting to see under new management. Yeah,
absolutely. An intriguing battle from all accounts. And I suppose if you were to predict the Kevin, and after all that, what would you be saying?
I'd probably go for Tyrone, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Conventional wisdom right now would tell me Tyrone. But, as I say, if you poll people tonight in County Cavan, that's what most people would say. You're going to Tyrone in an Ulster Championship match. Tyrone, the most consistent team in Ulster over the past 20 years. New management in, new hunger about them. The pick of the country, basically. That's how good the strength and depth in their panel is. So, conventional wisdom tells you that it will be Tyrone that will come through that battle. But hopefully that gives Cavan a bit of incentive.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And suppose out of all them teams, Kevin, who would you be thinking that could probably go on and win Ulster?
Because of the way that the draws developed out, there is more chance of me taking Boris Johnson for a foxtrot than there is of Antrim winning the Ulster Championship. So I think Donegal have the best squad at the minute overall. I think they do. And that's Tyrone would be next to them. So if Donegal can get out of their 2 games and into that semi-final, whoever wins that game for me is the team that is going to win the Ulster Championship.
Yeah.
The 2 big games, if they do happen, of course, results dependent, will be Monaghan, Armagh, Tyrone, Donegal.
Yeah.
And on any given day in the Ulster Championship, particularly with the Monaghan Armagh game, you just couldn't predict the winner.
Yeah. I can't wait for it personally. I think it'll be all brilliant, and we're really, really looking forward to it. And just to kind of get your perspective on the news in recent weeks, I suppose, Kevin, training breaches, Dublin and Monaghan were caught, and I think it was in April's Fool's Day, on the 1st of April, Dublin were caught, and it was right in front of the Irish Independent, and the media jumped on it, and obviously Monaghan were caught a couple of weeks later. So what was your verdict on all the training breaches?
Look, I think Spillane summed it up well. Look, Dublin had us all down. They're the team, even the hurlers right across the country look up to Dublin, the professionalism, what they've done in the last 6, 7, 8 years. Yes, they have all the resources and stuff, but forget about that. We all look up to them. So, the way that they went about this was poor. And they let us down. I understand, mental health, getting teams out to train, whatever else, but, not to bore your viewers too much with the old political theory. At the minute, we're all trying to buy into a social contract. Everybody's trying to buy in for the greater good of society so they can move forward. When your heroes or the team that you look up to do not do that, then, it sort of lets everybody down. And, in the Monaghan case as well, Banty has obviously paid the penalty. Again, it's not good judgment. We all make mistakes in life. But I think the GA's penalties need to be a wee bit more severe, if I'm honest with you. Whilst the players and the team are working under instructions from the management, possibly the 2 managers should be banned from the rest of the year from going inside a GA ground. And people might say that's harsh. There has to be a signal sent out that what happened was wrong and that punishment is just.
Yeah, absolutely. And could you really believe it? Obviously, Monaghan a few weeks later, could you really understand it, especially after Dublin getting caught? Could you believe Seamus McEnany's team were caught?
Well, a man once told me about Monaghan. He says the Monaghan people steal the eyeballs out of your head and sell them back to you, so you never know what's going on down in Monaghan. There's a lot of back roads down there, especially up around the Armagh border, that, you might find teams train over hills or something in, but no, complete and utter stupidity. Teams are trying to get the edge and all of this, but realistically, it's people's livelihoods, it's people's health. It's the fact that we're in a very, very bleak and dark place right across the continent of Europe, and that, as I say again, people will look up to our sporting heroes, making these decisions. It's bad PR for the team. It's bad PR for the county. And it's certainly not good PR for the GAA, who, by the way, each and every individual in the clubs have been absolutely brilliant during this pandemic to their local community. So, it's actually working against what the ethos of the organisation is. And indeed, it masquerades really what the organisation has done over the past 10, 12 months in the communities where it has been working.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully no other teams are at it, or well, I suppose that teams come back training, but it's good that it's all kind of cleared up and the bans are given out and it's all sorted now. But Kevin McGourty, thanks a million for joining me on the JMAC podcast this week. And of course, this podcast is sponsored by OrgaRetro.com. Check the website out for all your retro gear needs. Kevin, enjoy the golf, look after yourself, and good to catch up with you.
Cheers, man. Chat to you soon.
Cheers, Kev. Thank you.
See you. Bye.